This is Ken Pyle at the Media Innovation Summit 2011 with Ann Shaub of Verizon. Ann, nice to see you again.
Good to see you too.
And so you had a phrase that I thought it just captures today's world, and that's borderless lifestyle. Why don't you tell us about what that phrase means?
Well, it's really interesting because, it used to be what you did in the house stayed in the house, and you watch your TV in the house. That's the only place you did it. But borderless lifestyle says, I can do anything I want, anywhere I want, anytime I want. And so there are no boundaries anymore. So if you happen to be, 400 miles away and you want to set your thermostat to a new temperature so when you get home the house is comfortable, you can do that with a home control service. Or this, on Thanksgiving weekend, I was down at my mom's house and decided, I forgot to record the Very Gaga Thanksgiving or whatever that show was that my kids wanted to watch. I pulled it up on my Android phone and hit the record button. And so when I got home on Sunday, there it was waiting for me. So whether it's recording or getting access to content that I've stored in the cloud or controlling my house, I can do all of that whether I'm on the road or whether I'm at home. Very convenient.
Well, and there's something about that home that's a little bit different now. I think Eric Bruno made a prediction about 10 connected devices. You've already exceeded that, and that's supposed to be in 2013 or
That's
something.
right.
Tell me how many you have.
Yeah, that was the great challenge. He had made the prediction that about 10 by 2013. And he said he went around his house and counted and came up with 21. So I took the personal challenge to sit down and count it up. By the time I was done, I had over 50. Now, we have 8 set-top boxes. We have 2 or 3 connected TVs. We have Xboxes, PlayStations. We have Wiis. We have a Zoom. We have an iPad. We have iPod Touches. Then we have all of our phones. And then you get to the connected devices, the cameras, the thermostats, the door locks, the window sensors. You start to add it all up and you realize I am really connected at home, and finding a way to manage all those connected devices is really the key thing that we're really focused on here.
Well, and your video really says it all. I mean, it becomes complex, right? If you have so many connections, so how do you simplify it?
Well, that's a big thing. What we do is we figure out how customers want to interact with the devices that they have in their home. And then we figure out a single way. So it's the same whichever property they go to, except it's a little bit different. So same but different. I know it's sort of in conflict, but it's the same things. You want to turn on a light, it's the same turning on and off the light. But depending on the amount of real estate that you have, the interaction is different. So for instance, on a smartphone, it's really only meant to toggle on, toggle off. It's command and control. I can see my thermostat, set my thermostat, right? I can see a mode, right? So we introduced the idea of modes back when we spoke back in March, but it's the idea of allowing devices in your home to work together. So a door sensor from Aon Labs can interface with a light module from Ingersoll Rand because we have a platform that allows those devices to talk. Well, I can't create the mode that says cause and effect, but I sure can make it work by run that mode. So I can do that, but when I go to my web interface, much richer, right? I have that great real estate of a screen, and now I can do setup and all that. But when it comes time to operate it, it's still on, it's still off. It looks the same, I find it the same. And then for our TV property, it scrolls along the bottom. I have slightly more real estate, so I give a little bit more information, but the right amount of information so I don't overwhelm people and have them get lost in the usability of it.
Well, and that's, I guess, a key consideration, too, is the usability. How do you make it seamless and kind of the same across these devices?
Right. Well, it's simplicity. Big word for us is simple. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't make it more difficult. Remember the big rules. The device is only as big as the devices. So don't try to cram stuff in. So for instance, on our connected home, over 60% of the people are interfacing with their house from the smartphone itself. That is they've got the idea of the borderless lifestyle. They may not know to call it that way, but the fact that they can interact with their home, even when they're not there, that's a big thing. But we don't want to, just because they're using it, doesn't mean we want to pile on and make it more difficult. Very simple. Turn it on, turn it off, don't overcomplicate it. And so that's really the tenets, is make it the same, but make it simple and intuitive.
Well, and do you have any idea of where they're actually using it? Do you find people actually using it in the same room where they are, using it as an alternative light switch?
Well, so I know in our house it is, right? So the other night, my husband and I got into dueling lights, right? So he went upstairs to bed, and he decided everybody should be in bed. Now, it was 8:30. I thought it was a little early. So he starts turning off the lights. So I'm downstairs, and I turn them back on. Then they go off, and all of a sudden, now he's starting to laugh because he knows that he's doing this. Well, I was doing it for my my smartphone sitting on the couch. He was using the TV app upstairs in the bedroom. So yeah, you will use them, but that smartphone that I have walks out the house when I walk out of the house. So you have to understand the other points of interface that you can use, whether it's the TV or the iPad, or the computer itself.
And so, speaking of going everywhere, what about TV everywhere? You've got, the apps to control things, but then, what about actually to consume things and consume wherever you are? Where do you see that kind of going forward?
Yeah, well, so we have a great TV everywhere product. So I subscribe to HBO as one of my premium content channels. And so I can go to hbogo.com and log on with the same single sign-on that I do to get to every other Verizon app I go to. And I get the whole HBO channel lineup right there in front of me. And I can choose to watch a movie on demand or a TV show if it's a subscription show, a normal season show. But then also we have a product called FlexView that we introduced earlier this year, which gives you the option to actually rent a video asset or purchase a video asset, and it's stored up in the cloud. Okay. So now I can go and from my phone or from my iPad download it if I'm going on vacation. The really great part about it, I think anyway, is I can go in knowing the family's going on vacation for 2 weeks and download 5 movies. Okay. I get them for 30 days up in that cloud, but the subscription window, the 2-day window, doesn't start till I actually launch it. Okay. So it might be, a week and a half into my vacation before I decide to actually watch the movie that I've rented, but my rental window doesn't really start until I click the download button. So you can stage content that you want and take that with you and get to it from wherever you are.
Well, then, do you see that tying into some of the things like the ultraviolet, and do you see, the physical media being important to consumers these days, or are they going to say, yeah, the cloud's good enough?
Well, I think that the precedent's been set, right? We've gotten used to cloud-based storage of content just by virtue of iTunes, right? So people have gotten and wrapped they've moved away from the CDs. Now, they still buy CDs, right? And so I don't think people are going to give up DVDs for movies, but they've certainly gotten to the idea that I can take content and it can be in the cloud and I can get it on whatever device I want. So it's the step to go from music to videos is a lot easier than going from nothing straight up to videos, because there's this sort of trust factor that goes with it. And I think from a Verizon perspective, the fact that we've been around for a long time, and so we're not going to build up something and then abandon it, and so people aren't going to be investing in content that's going to go poof and go away because it's not a startup venture for us. This is absolutely part of the overall value proposition that we're giving to customers to be able to get to their content everywhere.
Well, and then kind of want to end on this note, the question of, we always talk about educating the consumer being important, but what about the people who deal with the consumers, the consumer education? And you related an interesting anecdote about some of the challenges you face in explaining your products to your own people.
Yeah, so we come at it in 2 ways. One was, and then the story we shared was training our reps in our call centers on how to sell our home control product. And in particular, there were some reps in our Manhattan office who were shying away from selling the package that included a smart thermostat. And we sat with them and asked why, and it's because a lot of apartment buildings in Manhattan or in New York City don't have thermostats in them. So the idea that, there's this other domain where people actually use their thermostats, it was foreign to them. Yeah. So spending times with the reps in all of the places around the country to understand what's driving them, to help them understand and communicate the value proposition. The other side of the coin is, how do you do, tech support? And so for some of these products, like the home control products, we're actually using a third party to do tech support, because our technicians, they're great at answering our video questions, our data questions, and our telephone questions. But for a lot of these new products that are IP connected, a little more sophisticated in terms of how they interact, we're taking the model that we use for tech support for computers, for instance. So we have a tech support that we already use, and we're emulating that model. And then similarly for our installation services, as we go into this, and we do recommend for some of the home controls that you get an electrician. And there are a lot of rules in various jurisdictions about needing to have electricians or general contractor licenses. So while people can do it themselves, we do suggest that they get a general contractor for some of it, and if they don't, we have partners that we can direct them to so that they can have that professionally installed for them if they choose to have that as well. So using alternative partners for part of the new parts of our business, and then really educating our reps to make sure that they're fully selling it. That's, I think, the equation that's going to make it work for us.
Well, Ann, it's always great to talk to you and some of the innovative things you guys are doing. I appreciate your time.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.